Given the fact that Mercedes-Benz followed up the EQS saloon with the EQE saloon, it would be logical to think that they would follow up the EQS SUV with an EQE SUV. And that is precisely what they have done. But is it any good? Welcome to the first road test review of 2024. Welcome to the new Mercedes-Benz EQE SUV. And as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before we get started on this week's road test review of the Mercedes-Benz EQE SUV, it is of course that time when I'm going to ask you to make sure you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Then once you've done that, make sure you've also pressed the little bell button down below, because then that way you'll get a notification of when our next video is uploaded and has gone live. Once you've watched it, if you do enjoy it, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and of course don't forget, leave us your comments and thoughts down below. Let me know what you think about the cars that we review, such as the EQE SUV from Mercedes-Benz, and of course on the AutoEV channel as a whole. Now, whilst most manufacturers seem to be sort of slimming down their ranges, Mercedes-Benz seem to be swimming against that particular tide and giving us even more alphabet spaghetti. And like, as I say, they did with the EQS saloon and gave us an EQE saloon, again similar size to the S-Class and E-Class saloons, they of course gave us the big EQS SUV. So naturally they would give us a smaller EQE SUV. Now this is going to be sort of like a similar size to their GLE, which is of course the sort of SUV equivalent of an E-Class, which the EQE saloon is sort of the electric equivalent of. Does all that make sense? Exactly. So why did they not just electrify a GLE? Well, of course, Mercedes-Benz have got this new bespoke EV platform that we've seen underpin the EQS saloon, EQE saloon, EQS SUV, and of course now the EQE SUV, and it will go on to span more EVs as the brand moves towards electrification. But is it any good? So let's take a look at the main points about the new Mercedes-Benz EQE SUV. Well, like its larger EQS models, the EQE models are built on the bespoke EV architecture that the firm will expand as it introduces new EVs into its range. It competes with cars such as BMW's iX, Tesla Model X and Audi's Q8 e-tron. It has a usable battery capacity of 89 kilowatt hours for a WLTP range of up to 334 miles. 2 power outputs and 4 trim levels are available on the standard EQE SUV in the UK, with prices starting from just over £90,000 up to just over £121,000 before options. And as always with Mercedes-Benz, there is also the addition of 2 AMG tuned performance models. So what we have here is another large, heavy, expensive, all-electric SUV from a premium badged German manufacturer, albeit one that is also very luxurious and very spacious. But is it any good? And is it a better buy than Mercedes' own EQS SUV? Well, of course, the only way we'll find that out is by putting it through the road test that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle. And that is the AutoEV one. Now, if we were being unkind, what I could do is simply cut and paste the EQS SUV road test over the top of this one, especially when it comes to styling, because at first glance, like they did with the EQE with the EQS, it looks a little bit like what they've done is stuck an EQS SUV into Photocopier and set it at 75%. However, I have to say, I think this one looks better, and I think it looks better because it's slightly smaller. It's not quite as big a slab of metal as the EQS SUV, and it just seems to suit some more of those styling cues that we saw on that bigger one. Of course, you've got your kind of black plastic filled in front grille that's not a grille, but it's embedded with these little 3-pointed stars that shroud the big 3-pointed star there. You've also got the 3-pointed star on the bonnet, a bonnet of which doesn't open. More of that later. But it's very, very similar to what we've seen with Mercedes-Benz's other EQ products, isn't it? You've got the kind of nice swept-back headlamps here, which are digital lights, and they're really very good at night. I am very impressed with what Mercedes-Benz are doing with their light systems at the moment. Down at the bottom, you've got your sort of like airflow sort of like through here, your little aerodynamic strakes that push airflow through there and then round the big wheels at the side. And then of course all the cooling is done down at the bottom. A little flash of chrome round the bottom just to match in with the badge there. But on the whole, it's what we've come to expect from Mercedes-Benz, I would suggest. Now, as you move around the side, it's in the side profile that you sort of see, or hopefully see, what I was getting on about. I think it just works better in this sort of size rather than that big kind of gargantuan EQS SUV. It just seems a bit more in proportion, I think. Now, it doesn't have the sort of one bow design like the saloons have, because obviously that's going to be difficult to do in a sort of like a tall, sort of like long roofed SUV, but you can sort of see the glass house sort of has that sort of shape to it that they did on the saloon cars, coming into this little kind of point here. And again, of course, my big bugbear, there just seems to be an awful lot of surfaces here, you know, trims and quarter lights and more windows and stuff. I'm not quite sure about that. Anyway, I don't mind it. It's quite a handsome thing. Now, the base model AMG line car starts the range off with 20-inch alloy wheels. This is an AMG line Premium Plus, which gets these gorgeous 22-inch alloys. Not perfect, however, but we will talk about that later. Of course, you get your ubiquitous black sort of like plastic wheel arch claddings, and then the signature kind of EQE or EQ range things, like the kind of big standout mirrors with sort of like digital cameras in them. There's also some really nice puddle lights as well that do the whole Mercedes-Benz signature lights on the ground when you open it at night. Talking of opening it, you get the flush door handles that pop out when either you approach the car or you open it with the key or you touch them. They pop out, and they're illuminated at night as well, so for me able to get hold of them quite easily. But yeah, as I say, it's a pretty much kind of standard Mercedes-Benz SUV as you'd expect. But as I say, I have to say I do prefer it to the larger car. It just seems a bit more better proportioned and not quite as kind of elongated and slab-sided. Yeah, it's all right. And round the back, well, business as usual. You get your ubiquitous Mercedes-Benz light bar, which runs across the back of the car. Got some, again, some really quite nice light signatures inside it when it lights up at night, which I do quite like. Big kind of extending roof spoiler, high-mounted brake light, rear wiper, and a lot of sort of like black plastic on the lower cladding. Your nomenclature there for your EQE 350. We'll talk about trims and models later on, and of course the 4MATIC, because it's dual motor 4-wheel drive. Your 3-pointed start is not just the badge, it's also the boot release, and it's also the reversing camera that pops out when you need to use it. But it's very, very similar to what we've seen before from Mercedes-Benz with the EQS SUV and also with the EQC, which obviously is now their kind of longest serving electric SUV, and I'm sure going to be replaced at some point soon. So what do we think? Well, look, as I said, I think it's a better proportion car than the big EQS. And it's sort of typical kind of restrained Mercedes. It's a bit more, yeah, it's a bit more kind of hiding its light under a bushel. It's not as controversial as something like BMW's iX, with its kind of edgy, blocky and, dare I suggest, slightly unorthodox design, but not as crisp and sharp looking as something like the Audi's Q8 e-tron or the Jaguar I-Pace, or even Volvo's new EX90 that's coming out, which obviously this will compete with as well. So, as I say, it's sort of designed to appeal to the normal kind of Mercedes-Benz customer, being a little bit more restrained, if a little bit anonymous and less controversial, but not exactly a design classic. But what do you think? Because after all, as I say, you're the guys that are out there buying these type of cars. Tell us what you think. Good enough? Or would you prefer the BMW iX or the Audi Q8 e-tron? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Now, rear hatch. That opens up to reveal 520 litres of boot space. And you do get some underfloor storage here, where as you can see, your cables are in nice kind of mounted cases that just fold neatly underneath there. And it's an all right sort of size of boot. I mean, it's 20 litres more than you get in BMW's iX, but it is less than you get in Audi's Q8 e-tron and the Jaguar I-Pace as well. And obviously way down in the EQS SUV, that's 45 litres more boot space than this has. You get a 40-20-40 split rear seat, which will take the total capacity up to 1,675 litres. Now, you can get the 4 suitcases in. I've only got 3 of them with me today, unfortunately, but they do fit if you play a little bit of origami kind of with them, with those ones there, and then obviously you get your carry-on there and you get another carry-on on top. But what I can't do is get the 4 suitcases and the golf bag in. In fact, I'd struggle to get it in because obviously I don't have any clubs, but also the way the boot would close, it would really squash that down. In fact, you'd struggle with this sloping rear end. So whilst the sort of like the capacities there, the practicality is maybe not quite there in terms of what you would get, was, as I say, with the Audi QA e-tron. But on the whole, it's okay. As I say, for this sort of size of SUV, it is a little bit more than you get with BMW. Now, I mentioned the front. Obviously, for some odd reason, Mercedes-Benz decide to pile a load of gubbins up at the front, and therefore the bonnet is sealed, so there's no storage at the front, not like you get with the Tesla Model X, and of course Audi's QA e-tron. Even Jaguar's I-Pace has more storage up at the front, so that is a little bit disappointing. Rear seat accommodation, however, is very good. Now, you only get 5 seats in the EQE SUV. If you want a 7-seat, then you've got to go for the EQS SUV. But the space back here is very, very good. I have got plenty of room to sit behind myself. That's my driving position. And as you can see, there's loads of knee space, got bags of footroom, even though the seat is as low down as it probably will go. And of course, because it's Mercedes' bespoke platform, you've got a completely flat floor across the centre. So of course, if you're carrying 3 across, the centre person is not really going to have any problems at all. If you're not, then obviously what you can do is you can fold the centre section down if you need to carry a longer load, but you also get the fold down armrest. Of course, you get your obligatory fold out cup holders, as you can see here, with your kind of tablet or phone holder there as well, so that's good. You get really deep door bins in the back as well, so water bottles and even some, maybe some sort of smaller iPads or tablets can fit in there. And of course you get the sort of like the semi kind of rigid mat pockets on the backs of the front seats. You've also got sort of like climate control for the rear as well, which is here, although of course you don't get things like the media screen like you get on Tesla now, but very few cars have that even at this price bracket. And of course you've also got a flip down a little bit there with 2 USB-C ports for charging games consoles or tablets or whatever the kids have in the back. So on the whole, very, very good. The seats themselves are all right. There's a decent amount of support. You know, they're okay in terms of length of leg. What I will say is one of the things I do think about the BMW iX is the way it sort of kind of wraps around at the side. It just feels a bit more, I don't know, a little bit more kind of luxurious inside, but this is good. Of course, this car's also got the big glass panoramic sunroof, so although I've got a dark interior car, it floods a pile of light into the inside of the car, so it feels very spacious back here anyway. So yeah, on the whole, absolutely as you'd expect, lots of space, lots of kind of lounging room, good storage, good connectivity, as I say, for the kids and stuff. Yeah, it's fine back here. Now, up front, what we've got is, again, another really good Mercedes-Benz interior. Oddly enough, however, I've got a little confession to make. I'm not quite sure what's going on with this car, because according to Mercedes-Benz's literature and the press packs, if you go for the AMG line Premium Plus, which this car is, it should have the hyperscreen. But this car doesn't, so I'm not quite sure why. I don't know what bit's wrong, whether the car's the wrong spec or whether the literature's wrong, I'm not sure. But anyway, let me just discuss the hyperscreen, because I do like the Mercedes-Benz hyperscreen. However, the more I've been using this car, the more I'm actually really enjoying the standard setup. And more than that, a lot of people who have got into this car have commented how nice this kind of almost kind of yacht deck wood paneling is, how nice it is on the dashboard, and I have to agree actually. And the only functionality you lose out by not having the hyperscreen, apart from obviously the kind of wow factor of it, is the screen in front of the passenger, which can only be used if somebody sat there. So in fairness, I'm now of the opinion that I'm not sure I would plump for it. If it comes with it, then fair enough. But if you go for one of the lesser specified models, it's an £8,000 option. And I'm not sure I'd spend another £8,000 just to have the ability for my front passenger to tune the radio or press the navigation. So actually, what the standard setup is, which is this, is actually very nice. There's only one downside with it, and it's a bit like with what I've had with Hyundai in the past. When you set the dashboard up, sorry, let me just have a look here. When you set the dials up to be in their classic mode, or where it's got the actual kind of dials of the dashboard, the steering wheel where I have it cuts out from 30 miles an hour to 80 miles an hour on that side, and then obviously the power meter on this side, so it actually takes the top off those dials. However, you do get a digital speed readout slap bang in the middle. You've also got a head-up display, and like I said, you can actually change the display to show you, say, the navigation, so you get the speed in the middle and up on the head-up display, and it kind of alleviates that problem. So it's not the be-all and end-all, in fairness, so that's fine. But it's the only thing I will say in terms of this particular standard layout that I can find wrong with it. Right, so you get the centre screen here, which obviously has all your kind of things in it, your apps and such like that you want. So you've got things such as your charging capabilities and your consumption and your range, and to program your charging setup, or you've got your excellent navigation system, which is a 3D nav system, which is excellent. It's also augmented reality. So as you're coming up to roundabouts or junctions, you get the kind of display from the front camera with an overlaid arrow telling you to go left or right or wherever you need to be going, which is excellent. My daughter was very amused by that the other day. You obviously get phone connectivity, you've got Apple CarPlay, which is wireless, Android Auto as well, and you get different apps that you can add into it as well. It's not quite the sort of like the tech fest, if you like, that say BMW now have with their kind of big screen with all the apps on it as such. Like Mercedes are a little bit less than that, if that makes sense. Whether you see that as a good or a bad thing, I'm not sure. It's up to you. I particularly like the BMW layout, but I think this is very good. It's better than the Audis, which is still quite a small screen, so it's much easier to see, it's much easier to read. And I like the sort of like the layout of it and the design of it. The only downside is you've got a tiny little bit, I suppose, of that kind of piano black, kind of glossy black plastic, which just gets fingerprints and dust on it. But it's only a small part, so it's not too bad in fairness. Your climate menu's always on, it's always down at the bottom. And whilst it is on the screen, you do get that nice click as you touch it, so that's nice and easy to use. And everything becomes quite kind of second nature. You've also got an off-road mode as well, because you're in like one of the SUV models, so you can see you get your kind of the drive focus there, where the drive's going to, and a compass as well. And also you've got sort of like hill descent control, and you can raise and lower the suspension from here as well, because it's got air suspension with it. So that's in the menu system as well. So that's different, obviously, to the saloon models for obvious reasons. Below that, you've got some small kind of touch sensitive buttons. So you've got your mode button there, which you can click, and obviously you can see your different modes. So you can access the off-road mode there, which gives you a maximum speed of 68 miles an hour. You also can go into Eco, Comfort, Sport, or individual. So it allows you to tailor the motor's performance. So when you're an individual, the motor performance, the suspension, things like that, to how you like it. And obviously when you go into that mode, it's set for you. So that's quite nice, you can do that. You've also got the rather excellent sort of like surround sound parking camera views as well. You can see there, look. It's like witchcraft. I never understand how these things work, but it's fantastic. Anyway, you've got that, and also a parking assistance. Pulls you into a parking space, so that's there too. And then you've got sort of like functions you can go into and adjust. So for instance, your head-up display, you want to adjust that. Again, you raise and lower the suspension. Your active lane assist. There's a huge amount of safety tech on the car. It also has a rather annoying speed limit bell on it as well. But to be fair, that's not Mercedes, that's becoming law. You can turn it off, but obviously it defaults on every time you get in the car. But generally speaking, the functionality of the controls is really very good. And I say, once you kind of know where they are, although they're, as I say, they're kind of touch sensitive, they are a kind of finger stretch away, and they're really very easy to use. They've also got fingerprint recognition as well for the car, which is excellent. So you can set everything up for you, and when you touch it, it knows your fingerprint, and then obviously that sets everything up for you. So really, really good system. Steering wheel. Steering wheel's a nice sort of size. Gone of the old days with Mercedes-Benz with their overly large steering wheels. Nicer to hold than the BMW because the rim is slightly thinner. It's quite nice. You've got this kind of twin spoke design on this particular model, which have the kind of touch sensitive buttons in the centre here. But in fairness, they work really, really well, and you don't tend to hit them by mistake. As I say, you can configure the driver display in front of you to show you either dials, navigation, assistance, off-road mode. So it's a huge amount that you can do to configure that if you really, really want it. And then obviously you've got things like your cruise control over on this side, your Bluetooth, your volume and such for your, your media controls there. Excellent. Up on the door, you've got your seat controls, 3-position memory. Heated seat functionalities up there. No ventilated seats in this car, oddly enough, which I think is a bit mean when it comes to pricing, but we'll talk about that. And then the ubiquitous kind of Mercedes-Benz stock style, which is really, really nice. You've got all the functions on the left stock for lights, wipers, screen wash, even the rear wiper, and then the one on the right is your transmission stock. You get really, really used to that. You've also got adjustable brake regeneration via the two paddles behind the steering wheel, where you can set the level of it, or you can set it into an automatic mode, intelligent recuperation, which is superb. Storage, well, it's excellent. You know, you've got your two cup holders here, plus a storage tray, wireless charging there. You can cover that if you want it covered. The only thing I will say is you've got a slightly thinner water bottle. It doesn't kind of grip it, so as you go around corners, it does tend to kind of roll around a little bit. Minor point. Massive big centre armrest down in there for your polements, and then again down underneath here is a big tray, an open tray for you to throw in, like, you know, like an iPad or handbag or your wallet or your sunglasses or whatever. And again, like the back, massively deep door bins which are rubber lined on the bottom. The quality is exceptional. The quality of the interior is fantastic. We're getting back to the Mercedes-Benz of old, where everything feels absolutely solid as a rock. The only downside is my usual complaint are these really plasticky feeling side vents. Whilst they look nice, to touch them, as soon as you touch them, and you do touch them to move the airflow around, it feels really cheap plastic. That's the only thing I will say. Whereas the door pulls, the silver door pulls, and all the rest of the materials used in here don't feel cheap at all. The leather that's on this car does feel a tiny little bit more like the old MB Tex kind of vinyl that Mercedes-Benz used to use in the 70s and 80s, rather than a nice soft leather. You can have Napa leather if you go for the business edition car, but it might have been nice for Mercedes-Benz to offer maybe more trims, like, you know, like BMW do, like a kind of cashmere trim, or I know you get Alcantara on the kind of more AMG line cars and stuff, but maybe something that's just, you know, you can pick and choose a sort of like a different material for the seat would be nice. It's comfortable. The seat itself is lovely, and you've got this really nice, where is it? You can adjust this, like, you know, the head restraint, and then obviously your door controls. You can extend the squab, so there's no way you can't get comfortable in this car. But as I say, it's just the material. I would like to maybe had a different material. It also has an excellent Burmester sound system in this particular car, which is superb, and a really good head-up display again, which you can configure to show you the information that you actually want. Right, so what do we think? Right, it's a really nice interior. I really like it. As I say, I don't think the hyperscreen is necessary. I think the functionality of this is very good. Oh, you've also got Mercedes-Benz's excellent voice activation, the MBUX voice activation, which next to Google that you get in, say, Polestar, is probably the best I've ever used. It's phenomenal. It recognises my accent. It's really easy to use, and it seems to work genuinely sort of like 99% of the time for me, so I do like that as well. Yeah, so as I say, functionality is good. The little bit of a shame the way the steering wheel cuts out this display, but as I say, you can get round it. The quality is very, very good as well. There's a little bit less tech. It feels a little bit less futuristic, if that makes sense, than, say, something like the BMW iX. But it does feel a lot more modern than, say, Audi's Q8 e-tron and obviously Jaguar's I-Pace. So it's somewhere a bit like the design, depending obviously on what you like in terms of an interior. It's probably somewhere in the middle. But on the whole, the functionality works well. It's comfortable. It's well built. It feels like a premium product, bar those air vents. It's another good interior from Mercedes-Benz. Now, in terms of battery capacity, what are you looking at? Well, it's 89 kilowatt hours usable capacity that you get on the EQE SUV, and that should give a WLTP range of around about 285 miles. Now, what's quite good with Mercedes is as you're driving, it will monitor how you're driving, and on the dashboard you'll get a minimum and a maximum sort of estimated mileage, if you like. So it potentially could be possible to get over 300 miles out of the car. If you go for one of the AMG fettled models, however, the actual performance AMG ones, then that figure is going to drop to around about 254 miles. So just be aware of that. Now, charging speeds, 170 kilowatts, so not brilliant, but not bad. So again, from a sort of like an ultra rapid charger, your usual 10 to 80% benchmark is going to be done in around about 32 minutes. But you will struggle in vain to find things such as 800 volt architecture, vehicle to load, for instance. So it's a little bit disappointing that for a bespoke EV, especially from a company like Mercedes-Benz, that type of new tech isn't really available as yet. Still, you do get a heat pump as standard. You also get an onboard 11 kilowatt charger and an onboard 22 kilowatt charger if you go for any model above the basic AMG line car. So if you're charging up from your 7 kilowatt wall box at home, you're probably looking at round about 14 hours to go from flat to full. From a 7 kilowatt wall box, but that will drop to probably around about 11 hours, maybe even a little bit less if you've got an 11 kilowatt charger. But if you're using the 22 kilowatt chargers that you sometimes get in the public charging domain, such as the street chargers and such like that, that will bring the car from flat to full in round about 5 and a bit hours. So there are two models in terms of power outputs in the standard EQE SUV range. This is the EQE SUV 350, which has 288 brake horsepower, and that's enough to see it sprint from rest to 60 miles an hour in 6.6 seconds, which is perfectly adequate. I genuinely think that's probably as much as you'd want to do in this sort of size of car. In terms of, you know, this sort of like price point and range and stuff. If you do want more power, you need to move up to the EQE 500, and that puts out 402 brake horsepower, and that drops your 0 to 60 time down to 4.9 seconds. If you want to go faster than that, then you need to spend a lot more money and get one that's been fettled by the AMG department. But we're not discussing those at the moment, so that's fine. So, the 350 is what I have here. So as I say, just under 300 brake horsepower. And as I say, I find the performance from it adequate enough. It's very good. It's absolutely fine. What isn't so fine is the brakes. The brakes are a little bit odd. They've just, I don't know how to describe it, there's just not a lot of feel there. In fact, they're devoid of any feel at all in some respects. It's like, I know a lot of these electric cars, they use the regeneration and then they transition into the friction brakes. It's just that, yeah, there's just no feel there whatsoever. It's like they've pre-tensioned everything up and then it starts. It's just odd, and it was a criticism we had of the EQS Saloon as well. The brakes and that just aren't very good. You've got to get the carbon ceramics with the AMG models before you've got any confidence in the brakes of that car. So yeah, the braking system, yeah, disappointing from that point of view. The other thing that I'm finding a little bit disappointing is the low-speed ride. Now, I might attribute it to the 22-inch wheels that are on this AMG Line Premium Plus car. But I do find that at low speeds, certainly around about towns or, you know, sort of the more kind of urban roads or lower speed on kind of country roads, it does transmit a lot of sort of like the surface imperfections into the car, which is odd for a car with, you know, sort of like, you know, Mercedes-Benz Airmatic suspension, which this car has. So it could be down to the 22-inch alloy wheels on this particular car. It'd been interesting to drive maybe an AMG line car with the 20-inch wheels just to see if they make a difference. But as I say, the low-speed ride for me is just a little bit. High-speed ride, fine, absolutely fine. Once you get up on the open road or the motorway or whatever, it's got a nice kind of ability. It's not floaty, but they just work a little bit better. It's just that low-speed stuff. You see, probably under the sort of like, you know, the 50, 40 miles an hour type of speed that you would just hit a transition, you know, an expansion joint or a manhole cover or a drain cover that's just below the surface, and you really feel it. So there we go. In terms of the rest of the car, how does it feel to drive? As I say, it feels very nice. There's nothing outstanding about it, other than, say, maybe the comfort that you get from it. Now, when I say comfort, I'm not just talking about, you know, ride quality. I mean, you know, in terms of the seats, the driving position, everything else. It really does feel like a very, very nice car to drive. It'd be a nice car to drive on a really long trip. You know, do one of my Scotland trips in it or something, because you feel that it would be that kind of car that would just eat the miles, and you know, you'd get out feeling quite fresh at the other end. So I do like it from that point of view. It's also very refined as well. You know, there's not a lot of wind noise considering the size of these mirrors. You know, there's not a huge amount of noise comes out the car. Now that beeping that you hear, that little chime, is that speed limit warning thing. It's a 50 limit here. Now you creep into sort of like 51, 52, and you get 3 chimes and then it stops. You can turn it off, but as I say, it will always default back on. So that's what that noise is you're hearing there. The driving position, the driving sort of environment is also very, very good. As I say, bar what I said earlier about the steering wheel kind of just cutting out that section of the dashboard display, which you can get round because of if you reconfigure it and you've got your head-up display, that's not really too much of a problem. But the actual driving position itself is very, very good. So you get, the seats kind of hold you well, they've got a nice amount of support, you can really adjust them well as well. You can lengthen the squab, which is always one of my things. I really like a lot of support at the back of the knee, so you can really do that, and that's excellent. The steering itself has got a reasonable sort of weight behind it. I mean, Mercedes have never been sort of like the kind of pin-sharp machines for handling, like say BMW. In some respects, they've been a bit more kind of geared towards kind of the luxury side of things. But there's a nice weight behind the steering. It does give you a relative confidence, sort of like on turning. That the car's going to go where you ask it to, and it does kind of go where you expect it to go, which is very good. There's a lot of safety equipment on the car as well, so the lane keep assist, the cross traffic like that, and the lane keep assist, it's not too intrusive. So if you wander onto the kind of white line, it's just a tiny little kind of vibration in the steering wheel that you feel, and that's you kind of being warned. It's not the big flashing lights or beeping noises or whatever. It's just that. So yeah, so on the whole, it is a very nice car. And in some ways, it is a lot nicer to drive and feels a little bit more cohesive than its larger EQS sibling. I think it's a better car in terms of the way that it drives. It doesn't feel quite as heavy. I'm not suggesting that it shrinks itself around you. I'm not suggesting that at all. But as I say, it certainly doesn't feel as heavy or as big a car as that one does. There's a bit more kind of wieldiness to the EQE SUV, as you'd expect, because as I say, it's a physically smaller car. So you would expect that. But as I say, for me it is the better of the two, I think. There's a really sort of like nice kind of, just a nice way about the car, the way it goes down the road and the comfort, and as I say, the seating position and the view you get is really nice. So I do like it. If the brakes were better and that low speed ride was better, it would be an exceptionally good car. But there's something kind of just niggling me a little bit about it, and I just feel that as good as it is, it doesn't feel like the step on that I would expect from something like say the EQC, which has been out for quite a while now, and that's not on a bespoke platform. That just doesn't feel like the real kind of technological advance with this car that there should be over that one, because we know how fast the EV world moves, and we know that obviously sort of like technology moves on, and that I find a little bit disappointing. If you look at the likes of say, I don't know, a BMW iX3 as opposed to a BMW iX, they do feel very, very different. They do, the iX feels a much more, sort of like, technological tour de force than iX3 does. And that's kind of what I was maybe expecting from Mercedes, and I don't really have that, which is a bit disappointing. Oh, one thing I did forget to mention is the front motor. It's quite clever. I say it's quite clever, a lot of cars do it, but the front motor will deactivate at low speed when you're in the comfort or eco mode. And that reduces energy consumption by about 6%. So that's, that's all right. So it is quite clever in a lot of ways. But as I say, it's not alone in doing that. There are other EVs that do that type of thing. And as I say, that's kind of where I just feel Mercedes maybe could have done a bit more. It just feels a bit more, just had them do a little bit more, I don't know, advancement, if you like, with this car. But that's not to take anything away from it, because I do think in terms of what this car is like to drive, what it's like to live with, what it's like to to go around your daily business, this is a very, very nice car, as it should be, considering the price that it is. Now, what I haven't mentioned is the driving modes. As I said to you before, there are 4 driving modes. There's Eco, Comfort, Sport and Individual. Again, you get a lot of that with sort of the different cars. And as you go from Comfort to Sport, you do feel a difference. you know, as I say, you move it into sport, the throttle sharpens up, you can feel that the torque is a bit more instantaneous. It does hustle itself along, especially to say for a car of this kind of size. And whilst I've criticised the brakes in terms of the brake pedal and feel, you can adjust regeneration via the paddles behind the steering wheel. So you can go for strong recuperation, or normal recuperation, or no recuperation at all. So the 3 levels. You can then go for a further 4th mode. If I pull and hold on to the right hand paddle, it goes into intelligent recuperation. So it'll be using things like the sat nav, the front camera, that type of thing, where it'll know if we're coming up to a roundabout or a junction, or the car in front starts to slow down and we're completely, you know, if we're taking it off, it will then slow down, but then take it off again, as I say, if we move away and there's nothing in front of us. So you can sort of get round the brakes a little bit by adjusting the regen, but that still doesn't excuse the fact that it does have a very, very poor braking feel, in my opinion, especially, as I say, a car of this sort of quality, price, and dare I suggest weight as well. I really wanted to have a bit more confidence in these brakes, but as I say, it's something I did note on the EQS Saloon when I drove it. It wasn't that great either. As I say, you've got to move up to the carbon ceramics on the AMG model before you've got any confidence in that big car. So yeah, on the whole, good, not outstanding, but good. Good enough? Let's see, shall we? Now, within the EQE SUV range, there are effectively 2 power outputs and 4 trim levels. If you discount the sort of like the AMG powered cars, I'll talk about them in a second. But basically, you've got the choice of either the EQE 350, like I've got here, or an EQE 500. And the EQE 350 starts with the AMG line car at just under £91,000. Now that's £20,000 more than the equivalent BMW iX xDrive 40 Sport. If you move up to the AMG line Premium, that's going to need £99,000. Or if you want this, the AMG line Premium Plus, or the Business Edition, which is sort of the equivalent of this, then you're going to need to find just over £112,000. Now that's £13,000 more than Audi's Q8 e-tron Launch Edition that we tested last year, and as I say, a lot more than BMW's iX. If you want a 500 badge, the more powerful one, then that range kicks off at £109,000 and goes up. And if you want one tickled by the AMG department, well, you're going to need to find over £130,000. So yeah, if you want a 3-pointed star on your electric mid-sized SUV, you're going to need to dig deep down the back of that sofa. This is not a cheap car. And that pricing structure might be a problem for Mercedes-Benz when you consider the competition that's out there. Of course, we've got BMW's iX. Now, okay, it's got the looks only a mother could love, but to drive, it is very, very good. And I say it's packed with new technology. And of course, it's a BMW. So again, it's a premium badged SUV, as is Audi when it comes to the new Q8 e-tron. And of course, you can have that as either the full-size SUV or of course in sportback form. Don't discount Jaguar's I-Pace either. So although it's going to go out of production probably in the next sort of like 12 to 18 months, the Jaguar I-Pace is still a good car to drive, and I say it still feels special when you drive it, even though it's not the kind of most modern of those electric SUVs. And if you're watching this outside of the UK, then of course it's not going to bother you too much. But even within the UK, if you don't mind driving on the wrong side of the car, then of course Tesla's Model X is back on sale here as well. So whilst there isn't a huge amount of competition out there, there is a lot, and there's a lot of good talent. However, the big news is going to come in a couple of weeks' time when I road test a car which I can't really believe I'm going to say the same name within the same as Mercedes-Benz road test, and that's Kia's EV9. I'm looking forward to that, and I think Kia and Hyundai and all those kind of like manufacturers coming out with more kind of luxurious models, they're going to put up a fight when it comes to being against the legacy luxury cars from Germany. So here's what we like and what we don't like about the new Mercedes-Benz EQE SUV. What we like, it's a more resolved design than the larger EQS SUV sibling. It's still very spacious inside. It's very smooth and refined to drive. It has excellent build quality. It's supremely comfortable. And of course, the Mercedes-Benz MBUX operating system. We don't like. Well, the brakes aren't as good as we would expect. Mercedes-Benz EV architecture is not as advanced as we might have hoped for. The low-speed ride on the larger alloys feels a little bit unresolved. And there's no denying it's very expensive. The new Mercedes-Benz EQE SUV is possibly the best Mercedes-Benz EQ that they've done so far. It is a very, very good car, and in my opinion, it's a much better car than the EQS SUV. So unless you need, dare I suggest, the practicality of those 7 seats or the badge snobbery that comes with spending more money on the flagship car, this is the one that I would choose. However, my issue with it is, it doesn't really move the game on any, and in my opinion a lot of other people do exactly the same, if not a little bit better, for an awful lot less money. There's no getting away from the fact that this is a very, very expensive car. So unless you must have the 3-pointed start on the front of your luxury premium badged all-electric SUV from Germany, I'd take a walk down to the BMW showroom and have a look at an iX if I was you. Thank you for watching yet another episode of AutoEV. As always, please make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Then once you've done that, press the bell button down below, because then that way you'll be notified of when our next video is uploaded and it's gone live. If you have enjoyed it, please make sure you give it a thumbs up, and don't forget, leave me your comments and thoughts down below. What do you think of the new EQE SUV? Would you spend over £100,000 on it? Have you? Have you got one? Why did you choose it over the BMW iX? Have you decided not to order one? Why not? As always, please let us know in the comment section down below. Now remember, we're also across all social media platforms. So Facebook, X, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. So please give us a follow there, because that helps us as well. And maybe you've started off the new year by watching new channels, and this is the first video you've watched of AutoEVs and you wonder what we're all about. Well, stay on the channel, because there's not just road test reviews, but twin tests, used car buying advice, electric van reviews, electric motorbike reviews, and of course our electric icon series as well. All that remains for me to say is thank you very much for watching. Thank you for continuing to support the channel. I hope you've enjoyed it. Stick with us in 2024, because there's a lot more still to come. Once again, thank you for your support, and I'll see you again soon.